All right, guys, welcome back to class 3.
All right, so relational operator is what we saw yesterday. There are few of them. If A equals to B, in this case, it is going to return you false. If A not equals to B, it is going to return you true. If A greater than B, it is returning true. Less than B, false. Greater than equals to true, and less than equals to false. We understand the logic behind it, totally fine. Then we have logical operators. Okay, I'm going to actually put this, the whole thing, into the code right now, and I'm going to run this in as a debug mode. Okay, so that everybody is in the same page. So let me open up my Eclipse. This is our third project. So I'm going to create a Java project. Logical, or just say operators. Yeah. Finish. Don't create. And we have the operator here. I'm going to just close my other guys. Don't save. Okay. And then we have just 1 minute. Test operators. Yeah, we're doing this earlier. Okay, I'm going to just create a new package, say operator. Okay. And finish. And then here I'm going to say class. Okay. Test operators. Fine. With the public static void main, finish. Cool. Now what I need is this. I'm saying int num 10, int num A and B. Num A, num B equals 5, 5, right? That's what we have. Every statement in Java ends with a semicolon to say that it is the end of the line. So we are good with that. Now we have to check out something. So I'm going to say Boolean result, because relational operator will give me a result as a format of true or false. So Boolean result, I'll set this to false, because remember something, this is a best practice. Okay, when you start writing a code, okay, it is always a best practice to initialize all the variables with some kind of a value. You can actually create a variable something like this as well. Okay, Boolean result is fine, but it is the best practice is to give an initial value to any variable that you're supposed to use. So which is why I'm setting it to false, right? Then I'm going to say something. I'm going to say result equals to, and here I'm going to set up two different conditions. One is A equals to B, and in brackets A greater than equals to B. I'm sorry, it's num A. My bad. And num B, and num A, num B, num B. Okay, that's it. We have this simple condition here. I'm going to put a breakpoint. Sorry, not a breakpoint. I'll put a sysout first, and then a breakpoint. So result. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about something called as a breakpoint, guys. Okay. What is breakpoint? Breakpoint is basically a mechanism using which you can pause your execution at runtime. Why do you want to do that? You want to do that because you want to check if your variables or your statements that are getting executed is giving you the right output at runtime, Runtime meaning when it is getting executed. So from this particular class, when Java JVM will start executing this particular class, it will start the execution from line number 1 to line number 20, line number 19. Okay, it will start from 1 to 19, line by line. It will pick up and it will start executing it. So the first line says package operator. What does that mean? It means that this guy here, this class here, test operator, resides inside a package called operator, and that is right. This is my operator package, and inside that I have a test operators class. Totally fine. Inside that I have a main method. Inside that I have three variables, num a, num b, and boolean result. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint in line number 11. Why? Because I want my execution to be at pause. I want to stop my execution. Sorry, stop is not the right word. Pause is the right word. Stopping means your execution is totally killed. I'm not going to kill the execution. I'm going to pause the execution. Okay. How do I pause the execution? Very simple. I'm going to say save everything here, and then I'm going to say this bug icon that you see here. You can say right click on it and say debug as Java application. Debug as Java application. So I click on it. If I do that, it is going to ask you something from Eclipse, that do I want to move my layout of the Eclipse to the debug layout? Yes or no? Simple. I don't want to do that because it looks confusing, to be very true. So I'll say remember my decision. I'll say no. Okay. And in that case, in the same layout, the execution just got started. Now, when it got started, you will see something. You will see that this red button is switched on, which means your execution is running, but right now it is paused, which means you can actually stop the execution right there. Terminate. You see that? You can terminate the execution right there, or you can go to the next line one by one. Correct? So I'm in line number 11. Line number 11 is having the breakpoint. So my execution is stopped. Sorry, not stopped, paused. Okay. In line number 11, we will see something. What we will see? We will see num a. And if I hover on num a, I see the value of num a is 10. I see the num b value is 5. So if I select this guy here, right click on it and say watch. This is called watch functionality. What you're trying to do, you're trying to evaluate a statement, okay, at runtime. I say watch. As soon as I do that, there is an expressions tab will open, and it will show you the current value of num equals b, that is false. Make sense? Now, num a greater than equals b. Watch. So the first expression is false. The second expression is true. When we talk about logical operator, then both evaluation needs to be true in order to, okay, I'm getting another participant. What happened, Raj? You were disconnected? Raj, you're there?
Can you
Are you
hear
able to
me?
hear me? Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. The system went blank.
Okay. Anyway, so did you miss this watch part?
Yeah, I missed that actually.
Okay, let me explain.
Sorry about that.
Do you see me running the debug mode? Did you see me running the debug mode?
No.
Okay. So what I'm trying to say here is that I am giving a breakpoint in line number 11. What is a breakpoint? Breakpoint is basically a mechanism to pause your execution at runtime. So JVM will pick up and start executing this particular class file from 1 to 19. And if I am putting a breakpoint in line number 11, it will pause the execution at line number 11. Why do you want to do that? You want to do that because as a developer, you want to figure out what is going on in line number 11. That is how we solve issues in Java. We put breakpoint and we figure out at runtime that what is going wrong with the code, and then we fix that problem. So this is what I was explaining when you were not there.
So the breakpoint is like when you, where can we rerun again?
Yeah, you can rerun again, absolutely.
If
So
the code is too big.
So when you are listening to a music, okay, a song, you go and you can pause your song, right? You can pause your song, and then probably you can rewind it a little bit, and you can come back to the same point again, right? Similarly, with the breakpoint, you can start the execution, and then you can pause your execution at a particular point, and then you can see what is happening in that particular statement. Okay, so I'm going to rerun this. How do I rerun this particular guy in debug mode? Is by saying right click, debug as Java application. Okay, if I do that, you see my execution is at pause now. So it's showing in green, is at pause now, and this particular statement is not yet evaluated by JVM. It is waiting for my instruction to go to the next line. If I hit this guy here, this icon here, saying step into, you see, step over. If I say step over, only then I will be able to move to the next line, which means that particular line just got completed by the executor. Okay, now in line number 11, I'm waiting. Why am I waiting? I want to see what's going on. Okay, so there's a mechanism to evaluate every bits and pieces of your statement. Okay, the mechanism is called as watch, right? So look at this. Num A is a variable that is holding the value 10. Num B is a variable that is holding the value 5. Now, if I just select this particular portion and say right click and say watch here, you will see that at runtime it is telling me that num A equals B is returning you a value called false, which is true. Num A is 10, num B is 5. It is never equals to 5. 10 is never equals to 5, so the value is false. Totally fine. Again, the second expression says num A greater than equals to B, and if I say the watch again, I will get to know that it is true that A is equals to B. No, I mean greater than equals to B. So I am good with that. Now the point is, when I'm using this guy here, AND operator, okay? When I'm saying AND operator is expecting both these expressions to be true in order to return true. Okay? Okay, I'm getting some questions. Let me check that. If we are watching the result using watch functionality, then how are we pausing the execution? No, Dipanita. We are just pausing the execution for the JVM, okay? But there is an option to evaluate every expression separately. I am not executing. So watching means you are not executing the program. Watching means you're just trying to figure out what that expression is having. I mean, what value that expression is having at runtime. That is what watch means. Is that clear? Yeah. So you're just trying to figure out that what that expression is returning at runtime. you're not executing the program. Okay. So now when I'm saying and ampersand ampersand, this is basically and operator. So it says both the evaluation, evaluation needs to be true in order to return true, right? That is what and operator means. If any of these guy is false, then I will get the result as false. Makes sense? Now I'll do a step over. Okay. If I hover on results now, result is returned to false. Correct? Because one expression was true, the other one was false. So my answer is false. Simple. On the other hand, if I actually do this, result equals, I'm going to copy the same piece and I'm going to just paste it here. And I'm going to say or. Or means double pipe. Okay, double pipe will evaluate. I mean, double pipe means or. Now, in this case, it says if one of the evaluation is true, evaluation is true, then the result is true. Then it returns true. It returns true. Okay, any one of them. Again, same story. I'm going to put a line number, break in line number 12 now, and hit the debug option. So I'm in line number 12 now. Obviously, you see the expression is already stored in the expression tab. Okay, this entire statement is already stored in the expression tab. So obviously, one is false, one is true. And as per the logic of or, if any one of it is true, then it is going to be returned as true. And if I just print that now, it is returning you true. Perfect. So with the same logic, if I take you back to the PPT, then you see that I have false, I have true, and then I have false. Why? Because if I am doing a not of true, so this second line is returning you true, and if I say not of true, this exclamation means not. If I say not of true, it is going to return you with false. Any doubt on this? If I say not of true, then obviously it is false. Not means thumbs down, right? So if it is thumbs down of true, so it is false. Am I making sense? Yes, no? Okay. Okay. All right. Super. Good stuff. Moving on to the next guy here. Pre and postfix operator. A very interesting stuff that you should be understanding. So it says, just give me a second. Sorry. Okay. So pre and postfix operator. Okay. So in Java, when I add plus plus to a variable, it means that I'm adding 1 to the current value of the variable. Obviously, I'm talking about an integer type of variable, not a Boolean or a string. I'm talking about an integer type of variable. So I'm going to now ask you a question, and I want you to answer me. Okay. So look at this second line. It says, in order to add more than 1 to the variable, it can be written as a plus equals 2, which means if the value of a is 5, then plus equals 2 will give the value as 7. It means adding 2 to the current value of the variable. Now I have a question and I want you guys to try and answer me. What will be the result of the first line? Obviously it will be 5, right? Because A is here 5, then it's 5. What will be the result of line number, the next line, A++? Okay. Shantanu says 6. Is it the second line? Pavan says 5. Dipanita says 6. Okay. Pavan says 5. Prakati says 5. Increment in every cycle adding 1. That's right, Vidya. It's called pre and postfix operators. Okay. So what do you think the answer is, Vidya? In the second line, you're saying 6. Okay. Right. Let's look at the program. Okay. Let's do this right there in Eclipse. Test operators, perfectly fine. I'm gonna actually do something here. So we already have numb as 5, totally fine. I'm going to say sysout, and the value of numb we know that is 5. Sorry, and then I'm going to say numb plus plus, and then I'm going to say again numb. Okay, let's put a breakpoint line number 18, not in 12, and then let's start the execution. Line number 18, we are stopped. Make sense? I'm going to hit the step over in order to debug. So that's 5. Now, line number 19, what should be the result? Most of you guys have said 6. What does Liliana say? Is it 6? Okay. It's not 6, guys. It's 5. The reason for that is it is a post increment of operator. So let's debug. Let's run this. So I'm gonna say the next step. Where is my next step? The result is 5. Why the result is 5? The result is 5 because when I say numb plus plus, yes, the incrementation is happening, but the incrementation is happening after the line number 19 gets executed. Then the incrementation is happening for the variable numb. So whoever said 5, they were right. It is 5 because it's a post increment operator. So which means the variable will increment to 6, but first it will execute the statement. The statement is to print the value of numb before it is incremented. So it is 5. Perfect. Now if I go and say that let's run the next one, then it gives me 6 because it has been incremented already in line number 19, and then it is incremented to line number 20. You're getting the updated value. So same way, we already have seen in line number B, the value is now 6. All right. I'm going to just do the same stuff here again, but in this time, I'm going to say plus plus. And again, I'm going to say this guy. What will be the answer of line number 22 and 23, guys? Pragati says, Pavan says 7 and 7. What about others? Do you think it is right? Right. So it's going to be 7 and 7. Why? Because I was having 6. Pre-increment will increment the value, and then I will be able to print that. So the number, the variable num_b is already having the updated value of 7. So in line number 23, it will print 7, obviously, right? Because you have already got the 7 here, because it is pre-incremented. Before the print statement got executed, it is pre-incremented. And then again, you are trying to get the value in line number 23. So let's run this. And that's what the answer is. Make sense? So this is called, can you please explain why num_bb? Yeah, sure, Divanita. So let's look at line number 18 again. Line number 18, the value of num_b is 5. We all know that. Now, this guy here, statement, understand in programming world that every other thing, every other component, there are separate components, even if they look like a single component. Okay, so systemout.println is a method to print some value, and num_b is a variable. So you are actually putting the num_b inside systemout.println. That is fine, but what I have is I have num_b++. So what does num_b++ means? Num_b++ means that I will be post incrementing the value of num_b. Post of what? Post of this line execution. So line number 19 will get executed first, which means system.out.println will execute first, then num_b will be incremented to 6, and that's the reason why line number 20 is showing you the value as 6. Make sense? Post execution. Yeah, so it is post incrementing operator. So you are incrementing the value after a particular statement. That particular statement got executed. That's where you are incrementing it. You're simply updating the same variable by adding 1. That's it. Okay. So I'll say run, and I got the value. That's pre and post incrementation operator. Okay, let's go back to the PPT. Okay, this is very simple. Assignment operators. Assignment operator means you are assigning some value. Okay, so you have already seen this guy here. A assigned a value of 5. When you are declaring a variable in Java or in any programming language, the best practice is to give a default value to that particular variable. The default value that you will be giving should be a logical value. Okay, you cannot randomly choose any value of a variable. It should be, whenever you are giving an initial value to a particular variable, you should be kind of understanding that why you want to do that, right? So it is, you're assigning 5 to A, sorry, 5 to A, no problem at all. Now you have these guys here. It's called assignment operators. What is it? You're just saying A plus equals B. What does it mean? It's just a shorthand to say that A equals to A plus B. That's it. Here in Java, A plus equals to B is equivalent to A equals to A plus B. A plus B, you are just writing it in a shorter format, saying A plus equals to B. Okay, same, A minus equals to B. So look at the results now. A plus equals to B is 11. Perfect. A minus equals to B. Okay, so A plus equals to B is 11, which means the value of A is now 11. Now, from 11, you're removing 6. So the value of A is 5. Now, from 5, you're dividing 5 by 6. Obviously, the value is going to be 0 because you cannot divide 5 by 6. So the value will be 0. And then when you are having 0, the value of A is 0, you're multiplying it by 6, then obviously it's going to be 0. And A modulus B is again going to be 0 because A is 0. The remainder will be 0 again, right? So this is basically assignment operators. Any questions on this? Any questions, guys? No questions? Yes, no? Okay. Okay. All right. Good stuff. So if you don't have any questions, then that's okay. Let's move on to the next topic here. It's called Ternary. I don't even, I fumble a lot to say this word. Ternary operator. Okay. What does it mean? It means a very simple statement, a one-liner that will work as a if-else condition. Okay, if-else condition. Let me actually show this to you. So on the very extreme left, you give a condition and you say if the condition is true, then the variable will get the value over here, and if it is false, then the variable will get the value over here. It's a one-liner to say if-else, to be very true. So let me actually put this in the code and I will explain. So I'm going to have another variable here. I'll say int result, res. I'm going to give the value as 0. Okay. So now the point is, so I'm going to write a ternary operator. Okay. And what am I doing here? I'm going to just simply write result equals, I'm going to give a condition here. What is the condition? Condition is simple. I'll say if num A is greater than num B, which means obviously it is going to evaluate it to true because num A is greater than num B, obviously. If it is true, then I'm going to add, then the result will be basically the addition of num A plus num B. So I'll say num A plus num B. And if it is not greater than that, then, okay, so you have to just remember the syntax. This is the question mark and there is a colon. So question mark, when you say question mark here, you're basically trying to say, Ashish, did you get disconnected? Okay, I see you readmitting to the meeting, so that's why I was asking. All right, that's fine. So now the point is that num A greater than num B. If this condition is evaluating you to true, then I'm going to add num A plus num B. But if it is going to evaluate it to false, then after colon, you have to give the second condition or a false condition. I mean, a condition which will, or a statement which will be executed if this part is false, right? So I'll just say num A minus num B. minus num_b not equals to minus num_b. So what happened? A simple statement. Okay. If this guy is true, then the result will be having the value of num_a plus num_b. If this guy is false, then the result will be num_a minus num_b. And I'm going to print the result, right? Sys out, I'll say res. Simple stuff. Let's go and start this. I'm going to put a breakpoint line number 29, no breakpoint line number 19, and just get a run. Okay, I'm in line number 29. Okay, now I'm going to just trigger the run, and you see the value that I got here is 17. Why? Because obviously, wait a minute. Okay, 17 happened because in between we did a lot of calculation here, right? We have added some value of num_b, and that's why num_a and num_b is actually having different values. So I'm getting some questions. Let's check. Yeah, that's right. Num_a is 10 and num_b is 7 because it got incremented, right? That's why. So we got 17, totally fine. Now, what if I just say num_a is 5 and num_b is 10? I just swapped the values. I'll restart. I'm going to terminate the current execution, and I'm going to just start the debug mode again. If I do that, I'm in line number 29 again. Let's run this, and I'm getting the value as -7. Make sense? Because this guy got executed, okay? And then I get the value as -7. You can actually do this in your screen, and you can see what is the value you are getting from the variables that you will be using, right? So this is basically a one-liner to evaluate, to get two different output from a single line by evaluating a condition. I actually use it as a shortcut for if-else. Okay, a one-liner if-else is good enough, you know, with this mechanism. Okay, some chats. What is the syntax? Syntax is simple. Syntax is this guy. It says condition, condition question mark will, so condition, if it is evaluating to true, then this portion will be executed or this portion will be returned back. And if the condition is false, then this portion will be evaluated or returned back or assigned to the variable. Okay. What's the value of num_a? The value of num_a is something, right? I mean, actually, because of many calculations that happened in between, because of pre and postfix operator, I'm getting a wrong value there. Okay, but if I just run this now, I've commented everything. I'm going to run this now again. You will actually get to know what's going on. So num_b is 10, num_a is 5. So obviously, this is false. Watch. Obviously, this guy is false, right? If it is false, then I will basically get the value as num_a minus num_b, which is watch. If I do a watch on this, I will get the value as -5, right? Result, if I execute, the value is -5. That's it. Let's move on to the next topic here. Very, very important topic, guys. Arrays. Okay. What is an array? Let me create a project. Not a project, but another class. So we understood about test operators. Perfectly fine. I'm going to talk about arrays now. So I'm going to create a new package. I'll say arrays. And in this array, I'm going to say new class. I'll say test array. Okay, finish. Simple. I've created a class called test array. And what is an array? Let's look at the PPT first. So array is a collection of same type of elements. Okay. For simplicity, we can consider it as a bucket that holds same type of elements next to each other. Okay. It means all the values, all the elements, same type of elements can be stored adjacent to each other, and that whole block or the whole bucket is called as array. So far, we have seen just a single variable. So what is a variable? We have actually, we know this, yes, I've shown this too, but draw online. Just a minute. Yeah, here. So we were using this guy. Okay, and we saw that what is variable? We have seen that a variable, there's a RAM. When I declare the value, say int num equals 10, what happens? JVM will allocate memory, sorry, JVM is going to allocate a memory and will give a name to it. The name is obviously num, and it will give a value to it. Right? It will give a value to it. So that is basically what is happening right now when you are saying int num equals 10. Okay, and then whenever, if you are updating the variable, so the same location is updated with a new value. Okay, with respect to array, it is different. What is happening here is, when I say that I'm trying to declare an array, how do I declare an array? I basically declare an array using a simple command saying int. If I'm trying to declare a integer type of array, which means I want to store multiple numbers in one single location, I say int square brace nums is the name of the variable equals to new int of 5 or 4 or 5, whatever. What do I do with this? What I'm saying with this? What I'm trying to say with this is that I am planning to store 5 integer, and I'm asking JVM to randomly allocate 5 boxes adjacent to each other inside RAM, so that I can store values inside it, integer values inside it. So as soon as this guy gets executed, as soon as this guy is read by JVM, it will create a space in the RAM adjacent to each other and will store and open like 5 different blocks. Right. Okay. What it will also do is, so it has a name, it has a variable name called nums. Let me actually write this with the text. So it'll give the value as nums, the variable as nums, that's fine. And then what it will do is, for each and every boxes right there, it is going to give an index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So for each and every box, there is a index, which is given by default by JVM. And then I can say that if I want to access the value of the second index, so how do I do it? I can simply say nums is the name of the variable, obviously, which will actually let me point, which will actually, so by the name of the variable, I will know that in which location all these values are stored, okay? And then I will say in square bracket, I will say which index I'm trying to access. So if I say print the value of nums of 2, it will give me the value that is there in the second index. Always in array, always an indexing, indexing starts with 0. So what I will do is I'll go back to my PPT and explain this one more time. So array is a collection of same type of elements. Understand this, same type of elements. You cannot store integer and string or boolean together inside an array. You cannot do that. Okay, same type of elements. Earlier we have seen that we can store one data inside a variable. Now we are storing multiple same type of data inside one variable, and that variable we call it as array. Okay, in array we basically start the indexing because the first element of the array, if I am saying that the array is of size 5, or the total number of element it can store is 5, then the 0th index of the array will store the first element, and then the second element and third element, like that. It will store till the last element. So 0 is the index, the first index, which is there for the array, and the last index is n-1. So which means if the size of the array is 5, then the last index will be 5 minus 1, which is 4. So it starts from 0 and then it goes till 4. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? How do I declare an array? I can declare an array in 3 ways. 1, int square bracket a equals new int of 5. I can say that. Let me actually show this to you at runtime. Okay, I'll go back to my code and I will start writing something. I'm going to declare an array, simple array, int nums new int in square bracket, I'm saying 5, which means creating an array, an empty array, empty integer array of size 5. Okay, I'm creating an empty integer array of size 5. I'll create a sysout, and I will, my bad. Oh, my bad. Where am I writing this? Sorry. Okay, can you guys tell me what is wrong in this code? Any one of you? What am I doing wrong in this code?
You did not mention any method over there.
Yeah. What method?
At least I should have given, you took the class, but at least some method has to be mentioned, either main method or something else.
Right. So I need a main method here, obviously. Right. So I'll say main and main method. Inside the main method, I'm going to just put it. So that's that. Now once I have it here, I'll say sysout. And now in the sysout, I'll say nums. Okay. And now I'm going to put a breakpoint line number 19. Okay, and then let's start the execution for the test array. Debug as Java application. If I just start this, my breakpoint is in line number 9. I'm going to hover on the nums array, nums variable. Let's see. What do I see here? I see that there are 5 zeros. Why 5 zeros? Because the size of the array is 5, and by default, if you are not assigning any value to any integer in Java, then Java will by default give the value 0 to an integer variable. So it is an int array of size 5 where we have not assigned any value to it. So Java by default gave 5 zeros inside the array. Getting some question. Let me take it up. Right. So that's that. If I actually expand this section here, you will see 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The first index starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Makes sense? Every one of them is having 0 here. Correct? This is one way of declaring an array. There's another way of declaring an array, and that is just a different format. It is int nums, I'll say nums b, and this guy equals new int of 5. It's just the same thing, showing in a different way. Exactly the same thing. Instead of giving the square over here, you're giving the square over here. That's it, right? That's the only thing. But at the end of the day, you're basically creating an array. There's another way of creating an array, and which is what I like the most, is this int nums c equals, give a flower brace. Within flower brace, you can assign the values that you are planning to add to the variable. Okay, so I have actually added 5 different 6 different values directly to nums c array. By doing this, what happened? So by this statement, you first have to declare the size of the array, and then you have to add the values. But by doing this, you can do both in one single step. By doing this step, you are saying that you are declaring an array of size 6, and you're also entering the values inside it. Make sense? So let us now try to work towards array a little bit more. How do I access? So let me just show you something. This is one way of assigning the values inside the array. That is fine. What is the other way of assigning the value? I can do something like this, saying nums of 2 equals 10, nums of 3 equals 20. So what is happening here is that in index 2 and in index 3, we are adding the value 10 and 20. Okay, getting some questions. Yeah, tell me line number 13. There is nothing in line number 13. No, it is not needed, Pavan. You can directly add the values. It's not needed. Okay. So now, what am I doing? So first I am declaring the array, and then I am doing what? I am saying in index number 2 and 3. In line number 9 and 10. Just give me a second. Okay, sorry. So in line number 9 and 10, I am assigning the value 10 and 20 to the index number 2 and 3. Okay. Now I'm going to print out. So this is assignment and then access. Let me put it. You're assigning assignment or assigning you're assigning the value 10 and 20 to index number 2 and 3. Fine. And then you want to access it. How do you access it? You say access it. How do you access it? You are saying that I want to access the value from index number 3. You have already given this, and I'm going to also show you something. This is having total size is 5. Okay, you are accessing a value from line number 3. I mean, from index number 3. Totally okay. Is it possible that I can access value from index number 5? Can I do that? Let's try to run and see. Okay, Pavan says out of index. So let's see this. I'm in line number 12. So first and foremost, so my execution is at pause in line number 12. I have not executed line number 12 yet. So if I hover on num's array now, what do I see? I see that in line number for index number 2 and 3, 10 and 20 is added, because in line number 9 and 10, I've already added 10 and 20. So num's array is having 2 and 3. In second and third index, it is having 10 and 20. Perfect. Now, if I want to print line number 12, it gives me 20. No problem at all. Line number 13 gives me an exception. Guys, you will have hundreds and thousands of exceptions when you start writing code on your own. You should not get scared by looking at exception. You should read and understand what exactly the exception is talking about. If the exception doesn't make any sense, at least try to put that exception details in Google and try to figure out what this exception is for. Okay, not that every exception I know of. Okay, there are hundreds of exceptions that will come, which you will not understand that where exactly it is thrown from. So that's where you go and seek. I mean, you basically research on it, and then you see that, okay, this is how the exception is coming, and that's how I should solve it. Okay, so here we understand what's the problem. The exception is quite clear. It says index 5 out of bound for length 5. So this guy is having total length of 5, which means total 5 elements I can store inside this. But I'm trying to access the value from index number 5, which is not going to be there, because in this case, the index is starting from 0 and ending in 4. There is no index 5 at all. So obviously, I'm going to get an exception saying index out of bound exception. Simple. Okay. So that's why in line number 13, I got that. Totally fine. I'm going to comment this out. Okay. So on that part, now let's go ahead and say, sorry. So, and now I'll say num_c. That is the third array here. I'm going to again try to access any random index. I'll say I want to get fifth index. Fifth index means what will be the value, guys? Right. So value is 78, right? Okay, so let's run this and I get the value of 78 because fifth index is this guy, this particular guy, last guy here. So I got the value of 78. Okay, now we understood two things here: how to create an array, how to assign values inside array, how to retrieve values from array. We have understood that. There is one more thing that you should understand, is a method which basically tells you the length of the array, right? So sys out, I want to get the length of this array. By looking at this particular section, you can say the length is 6. Length means total number of element that this array is containing. However, I can also use a method called nums_c dot length. It's a property of an array. And if I just run this guy now, it'll give me the length as 6. Make sense? That is what is all about array. I want you to tell me if you have any questions on this. Any questions at all? No questions? Yes, no? All good? Wow. I think I'm doing really good. No questions from anybody. Awesome.
We need to practice.
Guy, you have to practice, man. There is no, I'm telling you, I mean, take it in written from me. The videos that I'm publishing, if you start watching these videos as a movie, it will not register on your head. As simple as that. You watch the video, along with the video, you pause it. A section that I'm explaining, I explained the section on operators, pause it, practice the code, same piece of code. See the video first and then pause it, and without seeing, try to do the same thing in your Eclipse. Run it, you will fail. Go back to video, check and do it. Complete a section, move into the next section. That's the only way, guys. There is no shortcut to programming. You have to spend time. And in automation testing or in IT, and especially in this particular development work, we have the programming. There is, fortunately, or unfortunately, whatever you say, you need to practice from day one. There is no other shortcut to it. I say this to every student I teach, every batch I teach. Okay, so I'll move on to the next topic. Okay, I have just covered this already. I'm just going to go through it. Arrays can be accessed with index. So nums index number, I've told you this. Arrays gets initialized with a fixed size, which is very, very important to know. So which means, so you saw the exception saying array index out of bound exception. Why did I get that? I got that because array cannot grow dynamically. The value, the size of the array that you are fixing before runtime is going to be the value in runtime. The length of the array will never change runtime. So you cannot, so the problem is, if you 100% know that I am going to work with 10 elements, that's the only time you will go and use an array where you know that there is a fixed length. It's 10 or less than 10. I'm good. But when you don't know that how much elements you are going to get, array is not a good choice. We use something called as array list there, which can grow on its own. I'll talk about that in details later on. But for now, we'll stick it to the array. Okay. Elements within array can be replaced by this particular syntax. So you can say that nums of index equals to value. So in this particular section, right, I said nums of this guy, and then if I just say 2 is 40, so what will happen? In the same index of the array, the value will be replaced. I mean, it's a very simple thing, man. I mean, I told you earlier that when I say int num equals 10, this guy num here, num is registered into the RAM, and this num is having an address. Okay, that's how when you try to refer the value of num, Java fetch that value for you, and then you can manipulate. Simple. Now, when I go with nums, which is multiple values or array, so again the same thing, right? So here I have nums, which is having its own location, as you saw earlier. In case of a normal integer, normal variable, this guy is also having its own location, and inside that location you are again going and adding a sub location, which is nothing but an index, and that is starting with 0 and moving till n-1. That's all it is. First, nums is going to take you to the actual location where the variable is located. Inside that, you're again going one level down, and we call that as index. You can say that as a sublocation, and then we are adding the values to it. I mean, I'm just trying to give you another perspective of it. That's it. Okay, so that's that. And then I talked about nums.length property, which will basically give you the size of the array. Okay. All right. So that's with array. I asked it already. You don't have any questions with array. Perfectly fine. I'll move on. Again, good topic. Sorry, just give me 2 seconds before I start off. I will just do one thing. Just give me 2. Sorry about that. Okay, so we're going to talk about loops. What is loop? So in any programming language, we have these fundamental components. We have variables, we have operators, we have loops, we have if-else conditions, okay? We have collections. These are basically fundamental components of any programming. So when I talk about loop is basically required for a requirement where you want to probably execute statements for multiple times. So which means you have a statement that you want to add two values, right? And there is a requirement that you want to keep on adding two values until you are done with the lists. Okay, so this is a requirement where you are getting some values and you're keeping on adding them until you get the until you finish the complete list. So this can be done through loops. So for simplicity, let's consider a requirement to print a statement 50 times in the console. Okay, the requirement can be met by writing the statement 50 times, obviously. Okay, if I just keep on saying that I want to print out this guy 50 times, can I do it? Certainly I can do it. I can just keep on saying, right? I can do it 50 times. And every time it will keep on giving me the same value. Totally fine. But is it the smart way? No. What I can do is I can say that I want to execute this particular line and I want to put this within a loop. And in the loop, I'm going to say that how many times I want to execute or iterate that particular statement, and loop will keep on executing it for you. Okay, that's a very simple fundamental component of programming. So here in Java, we have 4 different type of loops. One is called for loop, while loop, do while loop, and for each loop. Okay, there are 4 different type of loops. So let's look at the first loop here. It says for loop in Java is used to iterate a part of the program multiple times. If the number of iterations are fixed, only then the for loop is recommended. If the total number of iteration is already predefined, already if you know that how many times you want to execute a loop, only then you go ahead and use a for loop. Okay, I'm getting a question. Let me check that. Purpose or rather usage of loop in any example. Okay, so I think I just mentioned that here, right? Rajesh, that if I want to print, take a simple example of a printer. What happens in a printer? Let's try to evaluate this. I'm going to actually clear this. File clear. Okay, so we have a printer. That gives me the print out. Fine. You are in your laptop and you are saying, I want to print 50 pages. 50 pages. Okay, I want to print 50 pages. So what is it that you're doing is you're sending a request to the printer as a job. Printer will understand that job. There is a software inside the printer. It will understand that how many copies of the print you need, and it will just run it in the loop until the loop is executed. So you know you are giving 50 elements, 50. You are giving a request to the printer to print 50 pages. It will read that and it will run a loop. In the loop, it will keep on printing all the value, all the pages. I mean, the same page 50 times. That's a simple usage. Make sense? Okay. So now that we have this, with loop, it says a for loop is used to iterate a part of the program multiple times. If the number of iterations are fixed, then it is recommended to use a for loop, right? So let's go ahead and see the for loop. The for loop in Java is used to iterate as a part, the same thing I'm writing actually. So what's the syntax? Let's go and write a syntax. I'm going to actually go ahead and put this in the code. So I will write a new package, and I'll say package, I'll say loops and finish. I'm going to say test for loop, new class. I'll say test for loop, okay, and finish. Okay. Now, when I want to execute a statement 10 times, what can I do? I will have to use a system that can give me 10 values. And what is that system? Obviously an array, because we have seen in the last section that array can store multiple values. So can I declare an array like this? Int nums equals, I'll give some 10 values here randomly. What am I giving? I'm giving points. Sorry, not E4. 21. Is it 5? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3, 4, 5. I don't need this guy. So I just want to give 33 here. So total 10. Okay, 10 guys in the array. We know that. Can I do something? We have already seen the variable, the property called length. Can I say size equals nums dot length? Nums dot length. So size is nums dot length. Why? Because total number of elements that I have inside the array, I want to know that how many elements do I have. So I just got the size here. Perfectly fine. Now the for loop, there is a syntax that you should be understanding, and you should be eventually, you know, kind of, it will register in your mind. So the syntax is like this: for int I equals 0. I'll just explain what I'm trying to do. I less than size I plus plus. Okay, it's a normal loop, a normal for loop, and I will explain this loop properly. So let's go here. The first part is called initialization. Okay, the second part is an expression, a Boolean expression. Third part is an update. What do I mean by that? The first part is an initialization. You are saying that you're actually in this section. You're saying you are basically creating a variable. You're initiating a variable. You're giving the name of the variable as I, and you're giving the value of the variable as 0. Okay. You're saying that this guy over here is having an initial value as 0. Okay, and then you're saying that how many times you want to print, or you want to run this loop. So you want to run this loop from 0th index, or from the very basic 0th index, yeah, and then to the last index, which is I less than size. Size is nums dot length. And then you're saying I plus plus, which means you're incrementing the I by 1. Probably it didn't make any sense. Let's do this. Runtime. Everything, guys, unless you start debugging, things will not fall in place. I'll just prove this to you. Sysout. I'm going to print a statement within it. Sysout. And I'm going to say print I. I'm just trying to print the value of I. Okay, that's it. So I'll put a breakpoint line number 12, and I'm going to start the loop. Debug as Java application. And once I do that, you will see operator is having an error. What is happening with array? Oh yeah, there is no semicolon. Yeah, that's fine. So let's trigger this guy. Okay, my breakpoint is in line number 12. Let's evaluate things one by one. Okay, the first part, int I equals 0. So you're creating a variable in this first section. The value you're setting that to 0. If I hover on top of I will get the value as 0. You see that? At runtime, I'm checking it. Now, the condition, the second part is a condition. Why a condition? Because you're trying to say that, you know, from where to where you are trying to loop. Okay, you're trying to loop from 0 till the size of the array. So this is a condition. If, I mean, this condition will evaluate true because I is obviously less than size. Watch, I is less than size, so I'm getting true. Let me actually clear other expressions. So I is obviously less than size, and I'm evaluating this to true. So the loop will go inside the scope. So yesterday I was talking about scopes, right? Every component in Java is having a scope. So like we have a main method here. This loop is also having a scope from here to here, from line number 10 to line number 14. That's the scope of the loop. So the execution will go inside the scope of the loop only if this condition is true. So I'm saying I is less than size. Yes, it is true. So that's the reason my execution actually went into line number 12. And then it is called update or increment. So I have to iterate this loop for 10 times. I can only iterate for 10 times if the value of I gets updated, which means you are actually slowly closing in to the end of the loop. So think about it, a simple line, a point, here you have, sorry, here you have the size, which is 10, and here you have the loop initial point, which is 0. Okay, I is 0. So you need to actually close, or you need to actually move near to, you need to keep on moving near to 10 in order to iterate the loop. So you're starting from 0 and then you go straight one by one, you go straight till the 10, right? And you are going every time you are actually closing in till your end point, you are actually saying that I want to increment the I by 1. So ideally you are doing I equals to I plus 1. What does it mean? So every time the loop is iterating, you're incrementing the value of I to the next value. It starts with 0, the next increment it is changed to 1, the next increment is changed to 2, so on and so forth, till it is till it is reached 10. This is a loop. This is a basic concept of loop. So you have to make this operation, obviously, right? You need to obviously make this operation, this guy here. How will you do that? Obviously, update I++. Now I'm going to trigger the run. So the first element just got printed and it's 0. My loop is still running. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and it is now thrown out of the loop. Because why? Because I have said I less than size. The size is 10, and if I say I less than 10, which is 9, and my loop is now this condition is now false because I is incremented by this guy, so it is now moved to 10. 10 is not less than 9, so it is thrown out of the loop. Any question on this? Yeah, I should be less than 10 because I just said every time the loop increments, the value of I keeps on incrementing. You start with 0 and then you print 1, then you print 1, then 2, then 3 till the time you reached the end of the size. The end of the size is 9. I mean 10 minus 1, 9. If I want to actually execute it till the size, I can say greater than equals to, less than equals to, and then in that case, if I run it, I'll get 10 because I say I less than equals to size. So it keeps on incrementing till it became 10. The loop condition, this condition evaluated to true, and then you got the value printed. Okay. However, by doing this, the problem is I will get a problem with the error with the array, and I will show that to you. Okay. So my idea is that whatever values I have inside this array, I want to print them. How do I print them? I just simply say nums, and within the square bracket, I'm going to replace it with I. Look at the previous example of array. How we were accessing array. We were giving the index here, right? Nums within square, we were giving the index number. In this case, we are also giving the index number, but now the index number is not hard coded. Sorry, but it is a dynamic value. Dynamic value means this variable is obviously incrementing for every iteration, and then this nums I will be updated for every iteration, and then you basically get the value. So if I actually want to show it to you, so I'll say I plus, I'm just trying to create a string so that it is understandable. Sorry guys, you're not able to hear me? Okay, sorry. Okay, so what I'm trying to say here is that if I now run the program, you will see that all these values that are registered inside this particular array is printed starting from 0 till 9. However, I'm getting an exception at the very end. Why? Because I have written over here saying I less than equals to size. What is the size? Size is obviously 10 because there are 10 elements here. So size is obviously 10. Now, if I say I less than equals to size, then what will happen? When the loop ends, the value of I is 10. However, in this particular section, when I'm trying to access the value of 10, value of array index 10, there is no index 10 in the array. The last index that we have is 9th index. So till the 9th index, I got everything. The 10th index, I got a exception, array index out of bound exception, right? Any questions, guys? With the loop. Any questions? For loop. When are you giving I less than equals to 1? I should start from 1. Why? Pragati? Why 1? I starts with 0 and then it increments. Not to get the exception. Even then it will get the exception. Because you are trying to get the index number 10. You don't have the index number 10. You have the last index as 9. The only option here is to take out this equals. That's where you will be always in the limit of the array. Right? So if I just run, I'm good. Any questions with for loop? Rajesh, Liliana, Dipanita, are you guys all okay with the explanation? Pavan. Yes, Shantanu. If I want to go from the opposite way, how can I go the opposite way? Okay, so we have seen I++. Can we do something? Can we just go opposite way? So this is like starting from 0 to 9. Can we go 9 to 0? We can. So we can just say for int I equals size, okay, -1, because I want to access the 9th index first and then go down. So I say I'm just looping it from top to bottom now. Now bottom, not bottom to top, but top to bottom now. So I greater than equals to, it's not less than equals to now. It is greater than equals to 0. Obviously this will work out because I want to actually reach out to 0. Okay. And then I say I minus minus, and then I just simply say the same stuff here, and let's print. It just got printed from 34 all the way to 12. Sorry, not from here, from here. 34 to all the way to 12. That's it. So ideally, you understood that we are using for loop in a situation where we know that what is the maximum, what is the length, or what is the maximum number of iteration you're planning to iterate. That's where you will go ahead and use the loop, like for loop. Okay. So there is another type of loop, and that is called as a while loop. So let's see this while loop. While loop in Java is used to iterate a part of the program if the program, if the number of iteration is not fixed, then it is recommended to use while loop. Okay. Statement within while loop keeps on executing as long as the condition is true. Okay, let's look at this guy here. So this is a for loop. We understood that much. I'm going to use a while loop. To use a while loop, I'm going to use I'm going to use a counter. Setting it 0. Okay. And let's try to create a while loop structure. While I'm saying as long as counter is less than, equals to, or less than size, as long as this condition is true, please go ahead and start all the statements within the while loop. Okay. I'm going to now, Pavan, if you know this answer, don't say, but it is for the rest of the team. So I'm going to just run this program. Okay. Sys out. I'll say size is the same thing. Nums, sorry, I'll say nums, and I'll say counter here. Is the exact same format like in here, right? We said nums of I. I'm saying nums of counter. Simple. Now that we have that, put a breakpoint line number 26 and trigger the run. Okay. Oh, 1 minute. Okay. Now I'm in line number 26 where my execution is at pause. I will now hit run and let's see what happens. I am stuck in an infinite loop. I'm just able to print the first value and I'm stuck in an infinite loop. You can see that? Can any one of you tell me why is that the situation here? I've given everything. I've said as long as I is less than size, please print I. Please print the nums value. So I'm getting an answer maybe. Okay. Pragati says no counter increment. Anybody else wants to add to that? What she's saying is that right? Correct. So we are stuck in the infinite loop because the counter that we have initialized here, it is always set to 0. I'm not even incrementing it. Am I incrementing it? I'm not incrementing it. How do I increment it? I can increment it by just simply saying counter plus plus. So by adding counter plus plus, I'm saying that the loop, the counter is incrementing at every iteration and it is closing the gap towards the size. It is moving towards the size. So let's run this. And we get all the values printed. Okay. Let me complete the do while loop because I have already reached 10 o'clock. So I was thinking to ask you guys. Anyway, so what is do while loop? Okay, what is while loop? So the while loop is going to work out when you don't have, or you don't know the total number of total number of iterations you want to actually iterate, right? That's where you go and run a while loop. So it works on a evaluation. Please see this program here. I'm saying counter less than size. It is basically a true or false. At the end of the day, it is a true or false. So let me try to actually write the same loop in a different way. Okay. Instead of putting the counter and size and everything here, let me create something else. Let me say Boolean status or reached or looped equals false. I'm just writing the same program in a different way. So I will write something like while looped is false. So in a Boolean variable, if you're adding a not in front of a Boolean variable, then it is considered to be false. So you're saying this means this particular syntax means looped double equals false. This means that. I mean, not looped means false. So while not looped, so as long as it is not looped, I want my program to run. Okay. Inside this, I want to print all the values of nums. So what I will do is I will have I will just reset the counter to 0, and I will just simply say sysout. I will say nums. I will say counter. Okay, so the same thing here, and counter is this guy, totally fine. So I will say counter plus plus because I want to increment the counter every time. Okay, and this will keep on counting. That's fine. But the problem is I want to, this looped condition needs to be false somewhere. You know what? Let's try to use something called as, I mean, you have already seen this. You have used the ternary operator, right? Can I do this? Okay, let's see. I'll say looped equals in the first condition I will say if counter, I'm trying to make it complex because I want you to understand the concept. If counter less than equals nums.length, okay, if this condition is true, then obviously the loop remains false. Okay, and otherwise the loop is true. Okay, and then I just have added the two more statement for the printing. Okay, if it is counter is less than this guy here, so it is false. Otherwise it is true. Once it is true, the loop will break. The loop will break. At the end of the day, you want to come out of the loop somehow, right? So let's run this, line number 34. All I'm trying to show here is that in the while section here, you don't really need to put in any kind of number variables. You just can work out with the status or with a Boolean expression at the end of the day, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run the loop. Okay, now if I just trigger it, so it keeps on triggering, and every time it is returning a new value. You see that it's printing all the values, 34, and then it comes out of it. Num length -1, right? It has to be -1 because you know the reason. So if I just run this now, you get all the values starting from 12 to 34. I want to know if you guys understood this section, because I have just tried to write the program in a different context, just a different context. A program can be solved in different ways. A problem can be solved in different ways, and you should know how to actually solve it in multiple situations with multiple different solutions. How we can solve it. I want to know if you understood this solution. All am I saying is that the loop is false. As long as it is false, keep on looping. I've set this to false first, and I'm saying as long as it is false, keep on looping. Okay, inside that I have incremented the counter, you know why. I'm printing the values, you know why. And then I'm saying if counter is less than num length -1, then false or else true. As soon as it is true, we can actually get the value there.